around 10 or 11, I'd changed schools and I wasn't the popular kid anymore that I used to be. So I started to bully kids in order to be cool, in order to get my affirmation from those around me, and did that for a couple of months, and it just didn't sit right with me. I'd go home and I'd burst into tears because I was being someone who I'd never ever wanted to be. Eventually went to school one day and I said to my friends, I was like, hey look, I'm not gonna be friends with you anymore. I can't do this anymore. They began to bully me quite significantly. I'd get punched, I'd get things thrown over me, I'd had words spoken over me day after day. And you fight that in yourself internally, but at the same point I ended up taking on a lot of that. So I went into high school and got away from all the bullies, but still had this heaviness upon me, and I didn't know how to deal with it. So one day I reached out and ended up self-harming. I was about 13 at the time. I then fell into a heavy addiction where I had to do it all the time. I had to do it multiple times a day, and the more I kept it a secret, the far worse it got. Started experimenting with drugs, getting into really, really unhealthy relationships with guys until I really didn't know who I was, but I would put on this big smile that I had as a child and pretend it all wasn't happening, pretend that everything was okay. But behind the scenes was this completely other person who was broken and who knew no idea what to do with their life and didn't really want to be around at all. I'd been suicidal quite a lot. I had not wanted to live for quite a while, and when you go through times like that, you can sort of notice people in your world who are feeling the same, and I had a really close friend of mine who I noticed who wasn't going through such a good patch, and we became really close in the sense of we both understood where each other were coming from. Her and I felt like we were getting into a better place, and it wasn't until one day when I showed up to school and someone came rushing in from outside and they're like, oh, I found out why all the teachers weren't there. Some girl, she took her own life. And at that point, my heart just sank and I said, who is it? And she said her name. And at that moment, I just fell on the ground and nothing made sense at that point. And that's when I completely turned away from God. For the first few months, I did really well. I got myself a flat, I got myself a job. Everything looked like it was going well. I thought I'd fixed my life. I thought that everything was great. And then I think the underlying depression and anxiety, it was still there. And even though I knew good ways of dealing with it, I crumbled back into my old ways. But one of the most scariest times was when I found myself walking at night, early hours of the morning, and I made it to this bridge and I'd climbed up, and then I felt myself climbing back down, and I had no idea why I was climbing back down, but then I felt myself in complete fear and paralyzed, not knowing what to do. There was almost like two different people inside me at the time, one of them saying, go, leave, get out, and the other one saying, fight, keep going. Within those two people fighting, it just caused me to freeze up. And all I could do in that moment was call a friend. My friend ended up finding me. She came and picked me up and was just there for me. And just, despite the shame that I had and the night that it happened, just loved me completely. And it was like that love was just a reflection of how much God loved me. And in knowing during those times when my world was so broken and I wasn't able to give anything more out there, and these people in my life just kept loving me, it was then that I really discovered that God loved me not for what I could do, not for what I could bring, but just because he can love me and just because he does love me. And that's where I found healing. That's where I began to walk out of depression, out of anxiety, to the point where I don't have it in my life anymore. I don't struggle with self-harm anymore. I don't struggle with drinking or anything like that anymore. I'm able to walk in this complete freedom.